The day's silence shattereth sky over Terra's new dawn colony was soft pink, a color the locals called blood cloud, though no one truly knew why. It was quiet, too quiet. The silence stretched like a blade against skin, waiting to slice. And elian Voss felt it deep in his bones. He sat at the edge of the outpost wall, boots hanging over the side, watching the stars blink like dying embers. He used to believe space was beautiful. Now he only saw it as a place where screams couldn't travel. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 3 days. Behind him, the colony moved with slow, routine breath. Humans were good at pretending. Even after the attack on Outpost 6, even after. The message from the Galari admiral threatening to remove Earth from the map of memory. The Council insisted on silence. Earth had stayed out of the war for 27 years. They called it neutral. Others called it cowardice. Elian called it survival. But something had changed. It wasn't just the way the Galari ships hovered closer every night. Their shadows, drifting like sharks. Or how the Volar merchant caravans had stopped visiting. It was something else. Something inside Elian. A voice he didn't recognize. A pressure in his chest that throbbed when the stars pulsed wrong. Kept remembering the little girl's scream, the one who didn't make it out of Outpost 6. The scream that cracked through the radio waves just before static swallowed everything. No one else talked about it. But Elian heard it again, every night, behind his eyelids. On the 4th day of silence, the sky changed. A shimmer tore through the clouds above Terra, silent but bright, like a wound opening in the atmosphere. Elian jumped to his feet as others ran outside. Mothers clutched their children. Soldiers reached for their rifles. No one fired. They only watched as a ship descended. Not Galari, not Volar. Not anything anyone had seen before. It was made of light. Not metal, not stone. It didn't land. It hovered. And from it, a single figure stepped down. Tall, graceful, skin like glass holding stormlight. A face that shimmered with no eyes, no mouth. Just energy. Emotion. And it spoke, not with sound, but directly into their minds. Your silence has been noticed. Your refusal to choose has tipped the balance. Now you will be chosen. People screamed. Others dropped to their knees. Elian did neither. He felt something behind the voice. Something familiar, like a memory he had never lived. And then the being turned to him. You hold it. The fracture. The last sound. The scream that did not die. The ground shook. Soldiers pointed weapons. Parents cried out. The being lifted its hand, and the wall behind Elian exploded into dust, not from the being's power. From Elian's. He hadn't moved. He hadn't spoken. He didn't even know how it happened. But the moment the scream returned to his ears, the girl's scream, clear and whole, something inside him broke. Or maybe something finally awakened. The being tilted its head as if curious. We feared your kind would awaken. Too late. Then it vanished, and with it, the ship. The sky closed like nothing had happened. The council summoned Elian within the hour. They didn't ask how he destroyed the wall. They didn't ask why the being spoke to only him. They only asked one thing. What did it mean, you hold the last sound? Elian didn't answer, not because he didn't know, but because the voice in his head whispered a warning. If you speak now, the war comes home. He looked out the window. The stars no longer blinked like embers. They stared. Like they were waiting. And elian Voss stayed silent. But not for much longer. The fracture that remembers. Next morning, Terra's new dawn colony was no longer quiet. Military transports flew overhead. Council agents arrived in armored suits, their badges flashing with the symbol of the Planetary Alliance. Everywhere. Elian turned, eyes followed him, some filled with fear, others with awe. He hadn't spoken since the wall shattered. Not one word, They called it a fracture event. But Elian knew better. He didn't destroy the wall. The scream did, and the scream wasn't his. He sat alone in a sealed chamber deep below the colonies. Council Tower. Lights buzzed overhead. The room smelled like cold metal and ozone. 2 guards stood by the exit, hands on their sidearms. They didn't talk to him. Just watched. On the table in front of him was a black cube, the same kind. The galari used for memory extraction. It pulsed faintly, sensing the emotion in the air. Someone wanted him to speak. Someone wanted answers. The door slid open, and a woman entered. She wore no armor, no badge. Just a long gray coat and a tired face. "I'm Dr. Lyra Sellin," she said softly. "I'm not here to interrogate you. I'm here to help." Elian didn't respond. She sat across from him and placed something on the table. A small device. "A recorder. I want to show you something," she said, pressing a button. Sound played. It was garbled at first, static and fragments of voices. Then it hit. The scream. Elian's eyes widened. It was her. "We pulled this from the Outpost 6 distress beacon," Lyra continued. "Everyone else believes it's just noise. But you reacted to it. Yesterday. That creature, whatever it was, said something about the scream. And about you. Tell me, Elian, what do you hear in it?" His throat was dry. His chest felt tight. He wanted to speak, but something held him back. Not fear, something deeper. Like the words were alive and refusing to come out. He leaned forward. He closed his eyes and he listened. The scream played again. This time, he didn't hear panic. He heard words. A whisper buried inside it. "They are lying. They are watching. Don't trust the piece." His eyes flew open. "The scream is talking," he whispered. The guards flinched. Lyra leaned forward. "What did it say?" Elian looked at her, heart pounding. "That we're being watched. That piece is a lie. And that someone sent that scream on purpose." Lyra's expression changed. She wasn't surprised. She was afraid. "You're not the only one who heard something," she said. "There were others, not many, scattered across the colonies, all near attack zones, all exposed to similar frequencies. Most of them didn't survive. What happened to the ones who did?" Elian asked. "They changed." Just then, a tremor shook the room. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed. A voice echoed through the tower's speakers. "Priority alert. Galari. Dreadship has entered low orbit. All personnel to shelters immediately." Elian stood. So did the guards. "No," Lyra said, voice sharp. "You're staying with me." She grabbed the cube from the table and pressed her palm to a scanner on the wall. The chamber opened into a hidden passage. "We don't have time, Elian. You're not safe here, and neither is anyone near you." "Why me?" he asked as they ran through the dim corridor. "Because you're the fracture, and they're coming to seal it shut." Outside, the sky roared as the Galari ship emerged from the clouds. It wasn't just large. It blocked out the sun. Its hull was etched with glowing sigils like scars on a god's armor. And then, the unthinkable happened. The ship began to broadcast not in galari in human voice. "Earth has broken neutrality. Hand over the one called elian voss, or face cleansing." Elian and Lyra stopped in the corridor. "How do they know your name?" she asked. Elian didn't answer. His ears rang, because the voice in his head, the one that carried the scream, was now shouting, "Run, hide, remember, before silence kills again." And deep in his chest, something new stirred. It wasn't fear. It was power. And it was waking up. Hunted by silent Seth storm sirens screamed across the colony as the Galari dreadship began its slow descent like a divine blade falling from the heavens. The sky turned dark. Thunder cracked, but it wasn't weather. It was the sound of something massive breaking through the upper atmosphere deep beneath Terra's surface. Elian ran. His breath came in short bursts, echoing off the metal walls of the emergency shaft. Behind him, Dr. Lyra Sullen moved quickly, her coat flowing like smoke in the dim red light. She tapped panels as they passed, sealing doors behind them. "They shouldn't know where you are," she muttered. "We blocked all signals." "But they do," Elian cut in. Lyra stopped at a junction and turned. Her face looked older than before. "Not with age, with knowing, because it's not just you they're tracking. It's the scream inside." "You, the fracture." Elian blinked. "What is the fracture?" She hesitated. Then she placed her palm on a locked panel. It slid open, revealing a narrow room filled with glowing consoles, ancient tech fused with human design. This was supposed to be buried, she whispered, but when Outpost 6 fell, the signal patterns changed. The scream didn't die. It scattered. And pieces of it found people like you. Elian stepped inside. His heart pounded. Why didn't anyone tell us? Because we didn't know what it would become. She turned to him. Double quotes Elian. Whatever's inside you isn't just memory. It's resistance. It's the last voice of a civilization the Galari wiped out centuries ago. They destroyed an entire race because they feared what that race knew. And now that voice lives in you. He staggered back. "I'm not a weapon," he said. "No, you're a message." Before he could ask more, an explosion rocked the base. Dust fell from the ceiling. A sharp alarm echoed through the room. Intruder breached. A screen lit up. Outside, Galari soldiers had landed. They were already inside the tower. Their armor was silent, built for one purpose: precision elimination. They moved like shadows through the hallways. And they weren't searching the building. They were heading directly toward Elian. "They're using a mind net," Lyra said. "That's how they're tracking you. They're not reading your thoughts. They're following the echoes of the scream." "Then let's run," Elian said, turning toward the emergency tunnel. "No," she said. "You need to stop hiding. You need to listen to it." Elian froze. "What if it controls me?" Lyra stepped closer. "What if it doesn't?" Another explosion. Closer this time. The monitors blinked, and one by one, the feeds went black. The Galari were cutting power. Then Elian heard it, not in his ears. In his bones. A pulse. Steady. Deep, like a heartbeat trapped inside stone. And with it came a whisper, low and ancient. "You are not the end. You are the echo. Speak us into fire." Elian fell to his knees. His hands shook. Images flashed through his mind, towering cities burning, voices rising in chorus, eyes glowing with silver light as they fell to galari blades. And then, something else, a name, Valtherin. He spoke it aloud without thinking. The lights flickered. Lyra gasped. "What did you just say?" "Valtherin," Elian repeated, voice distant. She staggered back. "Elian, that's the name of the lost race. No one remembers it. Not even in archive records. How do you know that name?" He stood slowly. His chest glowed faintly beneath his shirt, a strange symbol burning beneath the skin, like living ink, because they remember through me. Just then, the far wall exploded inward. Galari soldiers poured through the smoke. Elian raised his hand, not in fear, not in surrender, but because the scream inside him was ready. A wave of invisible force burst from his palm. Not fire, not light, sound. Pure, focused resonance. The soldiers were thrown back like leaves in a storm. Their armor cracked. Their weapons shattered. Lyra shielded her face as the air rippled. Around them, when the dust cleared, the hallway was empty, and the Galari were gone. Elian dropped to one knee, shaking. "I didn't mean to—" "No," Lyra said. "You didn't mean to, but you were meant to." She helped him up. "They're not going to stop. They'll send more. They'll call it a violation of neutrality. They'll call it war. What do we do?" Lyra took a deep breath. "We find the others who still carry the fragments. And then we finish the message." Elian looked at his glowing chest. The fracture had spoken. Now it was time the galaxy listened. Voices that never deed. Skies above Terra stayed black for 2 days. Not with night, but with the smoke trails of burning metal. The Galari didn't return immediately. They had been humiliated. And that meant they would return with something. Worse than soldiers. Deep underground. Inside the forgotten bunker beneath New Dawn Colony, Elian stood before an old star chart projected across the curved walls. The map pulsed faintly, like it was alive. Hundreds of glowing dots blinked. Human colonies, abandoned stations, ruined outposts. Lyra stood beside him, her voice quiet. "We found 6 others so far," she said. "All of them experienced what you did. All of them heard the scream. And every single one of them is in danger." Elian stared at the blinking dots. His hands trembled slightly. The symbol on his chest still burned beneath the skin, never fading, always humming. He could feel the scream inside him, no longer a sharp pain but a steady pressure. Like a tide waiting to rise. "Do they know what they are?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "Some do. Some think they're cursed. Others have already gone silent forever." Elian's jaw clenched. "Then we find the one still breathing. We bring them together." Lyra nodded. "I've already prepared a transport, fast and shielded. We leave in 1 hour." Outside the colony, hidden in a crater far from scanning drones, a sleek human vessel waited. Built for speed, stripped for stealth. Lyra had modified it herself, a mix of old Earth tech and stolen Galari parts. As they stepped aboard, Elian looked back at the colony once more. People had begun to whisper his name, some with hope, some with fear. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a prophet. But he was no longer just a human either. He was a fracture. And fractures spread. Their first stop was the derelict research station on Tau Minor 3. The air was thin. The station lights flickered like dying stars. Lyra held a scanner close to her chest as they moved through empty corridors. "This one's name was Vico," she said. "He was part of a deep sound lab, testing how resonance could travel faster than light. They found him in the core room. He was still alive, but not whole. Vico sat on the floor, arms wrapped around his knees, eyes wide open. His lips moved silently, repeating something over and over. Elian knelt beside him. "Vico," he said gently. "Can you hear me?" Vico blinked slowly. Then, suddenly, he looked up. "You have it too," he whispered. "The voice that cracks stars." Elian nodded. "You're not alone anymore." Vico reached out, fingers trembling, and touched Elian's hand. At that moment, the scream pulsed, not violently, but like a heartbeat, shared between them. And Elian saw it, just for a second, a vision, 6 people, standing in a ring of fire. Voices overlapping, a language older than time. Stars bending in response. "He's one of them," Elian said. "Then we move," Lyra answered. "We'll need to go fast. I intercepted a Galari signal. They know someone activated the scream. At Tau Minor." Their next stop was more dangerous. A prison moon. Delta C-12. The woman's name was Amari Soul. Imprisoned for aggressive resistance. But Elian knew the truth the moment he felt the air shift as they landed. She had the fracture, too. They broke her out during a blackout. Lyra hacked into the system. Alarms blared behind them as the trio ran through the red tunnels of the prison complex. Amari fought like lightning, fast, brutal, silent. When they reached the ship, Amari finally turned to Elian. "I dreamed your face," she said. Breathless. 3 times, you were always standing in fire, screaming. Elian nodded. "Because the fire is coming. And the galaxy needs to hear us first." One by one, they gathered them. Viko, the silent listener. Amari, the fighter. Raya, a child. Rescued from a colony massacre, she carried the screen like a song. Torin, an old scientist who hid his fracture behind layers of logic. Kale, a miner who cracked stone with his voice when angry. 6 voices. 6 fragments. And Elian, the 7th. The circle was complete. They met at the edge of known space, a forgotten moon carved with strange symbols. Ones even Lyra didn't recognize. "This place isn't on any map," she said as they stepped into the cavern beneath the surface. "But it was waiting for us," Elian replied. "The cave walls hummed." The moment they entered, the symbols on Elian's chest pulsed brighter. Each of the others felt the same glow burn through their skin. Different marks, different patterns, but one purpose. They stood in the center of the cavern. And then, it happened. They spoke together. Not in human tongue. But in the language of the Val. The Ran. The ancient race that never screamed as they died because their scream had been preserved. Broken into fragments. Hidden in those who would one day speak again. Their voices echoed through the stone, through the stars. And somewhere far beyond, the Galari heard it, and for the first time in their long history, they felt something they had not felt in centuries. Fear. The scream reborn. Cavern trembled beneath their feet. 7 stood in a perfect ring, each one glowing faintly, their skin marked by living sigils. Their eyes reflecting light that had never touched this part of the galaxy. The scream was no longer a sound trapped in memory. It was awake. It was alive. And it was speaking through them. Elian felt it rising through his chest, a voice that was not his, yet flowed from his soul like breath. "We are the voice that was buried. We are the cry that did not die." Stone cracked beneath the weight of their words. Air rippled. The walls of the ancient moon pulsed like veins. Lyra stood just outside the circle, recording every second, though she didn't fully understand what was happening. Her hands shook, not from fear, from awe. This isn't just language," she whispered. "It's code, vibration, a signal shaped like thought." Elian stepped forward. "We're not just remembering the past," he said. "We're transmitting it." A pillar of light shot from the center of the cavern, piercing the moon's crust and reaching into space. At that same moment, sensors across half the galaxy lit up. Unregistered energy. Origin unknown. But it wasn't just light. It was a warning. Memory. A truth. Far above, the Galari dreadship that had been orbiting Terra intercepted the transmission first. Its admiral, a being older than most stars, wrapped in dark armor, rose from his command throne. The message played in his mind. He saw the Valthuran again, saw what they had tried to bury, what they had killed to erase. They had not silenced the scream. They had scattered it. "Find the source," he growled. "It's already spreading, Commander." A drone voice replied. "Then burn the system. Burn every human colony that might carry the signal." Back on the moon, the transmission ended. With silence, but it was a silence filled with power. Elian dropped to one knee, exhausted. Sweat clung to his brow. The others sat or leaned, breathing hard, eyes glowing faintly as the scream settled into stillness inside them once more. "Did it work?" Amari asked. Her voice hoarse. Lyra stepped forward. Every sensor in allied space lit up. Even Galari territory caught the signal. They'll come. We want them to, Torrin said, but we're not ready. Raya whispered. Elian looked up at her. We weren't supposed to be ready, he said. We were supposed to forget. But we didn't, not completely. And now they know. They returned to the ship that night. The stars felt closer now, like they were watching, but so were the Galari. The moment their ship left orbit, a Hunter-class cruiser broke from stealth and pursued them. Incoming vessel, they found us, Lyra shouted from the console. We can't outrun them this time. Elian stood behind her, eyes locked on the dark shape growing in the rear display. His heartbeat slowed. And then the scream whispered, "Do not run. Open the way." What way? Lyra asked. Elian closed his eyes. His voice became low and steady. Let me take the helm. She stepped aside. He placed his hands on the controls, and the console pulsed beneath his fingers. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the stars outside twisted. Space folded. They weren't jumping through hyperspace. They were opening something. Older. A corridor made of resonance and thought, a path used by the Valthuran before ships ever had engines. What is this? Vaco gasped. This is how they traveled, Elian said softly. Not through distance, but through memory. The ship vanished into the fold just as the Galari opened fire. Their blast tore through empty space. Gone. They emerged in orbit. Around a dead planet. No signals. No satellites. Just ruins shaped like thorns rising from endless deserts. Where are we? Amari asked. Not where, Elian whispered. When? The system wasn't just forgotten. It had been erased. And now it had returned. On the surface, the team walked through the ruins. The scream was quiet, but pulsing stronger with each step. At the center of the city, beneath broken towers of crystal and bone, they found it. A vault. Sealed for centuries. And inside it, a beacon. Older than humanity. Untouched by time. Elian stepped forward. This is where it began, Lyra whispered. The scream. The last stand of the Valthuran. Elian placed his hand on the beacon. A voice spoke. Not a scream this time, but a whisper that carried the weight of 1 billion souls. We trusted the stars. They gave us silence. Now we give you fire. The beacon activated. And across the galaxy, every fracture carrier felt it. Hundreds of humans. Unknown. Unaware. Until now, each of them lit up. Like sparks in the dark, the scream had found its chorus, and the war had found its true beginning. When echoes become Ferethi signal rippled across the stars like a heartbeat too loud to ignore. On colony worlds, deep mining ships, and drifting freighters, ordinary humans suddenly fell to their knees, clutching their chests, gasping for breath. They didn't understand the pain. They didn't know the symbols now glowing beneath their skin. But they felt something ancient and powerful awaken inside them. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Every one of them a carrier. Every one of them a piece of the scream. The Galari heard it too. They didn't call it a message. They called it a virus, a corruption. They issued a single order across their empire. Destroy every human settlement. Silence the signal before it becomes a storm. On the moon where the beacon had awakened, Elian and the others stood in silence, surrounded by the dead city of the Valthuran. The beacon still glowed softly behind them, like a wound in the stone. The scream inside them was no longer whispering. It was singing. How many felt it? Amari asked, watching the sky. More than we ever expected, Lyra said. And they'll all be hunted now. Then we need to protect them, Vico muttered. We started this. Elian stepped forward, his eyes clear for the first time since the wall shattered back on Terra. We didn't start this, he said. They did. When they tried to erase a voice that refused to die, now we finish it. The first human. World to fall was Carthan Prime. Not to galari soldiers, but to orbital cleansing. Fires rained down from the sky. Cities vanished in seconds. The galari sent no warnings. No demands. But on the surface, one girl survived. Her name was Lena. 16. Hiding beneath the broken floor of a music hall. She had always heard strange rhythms in her dreams, but never understood why. Now, with her family gone and her home in flames, the scream woke inside her, and she screamed back. It shattered the sky above. Her. A galari scout ship dropped from orbit. Burning. On another world, a miner named Gavin turned to stone mid-shift. His skin rippled with symbols. His voice cracked open rock with a whisper. He didn't know Elian's name, but he spoke it aloud, and the scream answered with fire that melted steel. It's spreading faster than we thought, Lyra said, watching feeds pour into the ship's console. The galari have already begun their purge, but the fractures, they're fighting back. They're not soldiers, Amari said. Neither were we, Elian replied. The team returned to human alliance space, not to hide, but to gather. To rally. They called the newly awakened humans resonance. Those who carried the scream and could wield it, but they needed focus. They needed unity. They needed a message stronger than memory. They need to hear from you, Lyra told Elian one night, standing beside the fractured monument of a destroyed listening tower. You're the one who connected them. I'm not a leader, Elian said. You're more than that. You're the echo that didn't fade. Speak, Elian. Give them direction. Give them reason. He stepped into the shattered courtyard. A small transmitter, built from the Valthuran beacon and human tech, began to glow. Elian took a deep breath. And spoke. This is Elian Voss. You may not know me, but if your chest burns, if your dreams have changed, if you hear something when the stars go quiet, then you're like me. You carry something ancient, something powerful, something they tried to kill. But we are not broken. We are not scattered. We are rising. The scream was never just pain. It was a call to remember. And now. It is a call to resist. We stayed silent in their war, and they made us regret it. But now we speak together, and the galaxy will regret waking us. The transmission reached every fracture carrier, and something shifted. Humans stopped hiding. Resonance emerged from shadows, from prison colonies, from forgotten outposts. Some formed new cells. Some lit symbols into the ground for ships above to see. Others simply looked up and whispered Elian's name and waited. The galaxy called it a rebellion. The galari called it infection. But the truth? It was resurrection. Back in orbit, a fleet of galari warships entered human space. Admiral Veol, commander of Galari's Third Purge Fleet, addressed his soldiers. These humans carry a scream. Then we will give them silence. But he didn't see the fire building behind them. He didn't see the ships launching from old Earth stations, piloted by fracture carriers, guided by sound, armed with resonance tech activated by their voices. And he didn't hear the final message from the beacon, one meant only for the galari, a voice from long ago. The voice of the last Valthuran. You buried us in silence. Now drown in our song. The battle began with no war horns, no grand strategy. Just one human ship, small and unarmed, flying straight toward the galari flagship. Inside was Elian. And the scream inside him was ready to burn. The voice that broke the sky. The galari flagship loomed like a god in orbit, vast, armored, its surface crawling with energy cannons and deflective shielding. It had broken fleets, silenced rebellions, ended worlds. And now it faced a single human vessel drifting toward it with no weapons charged. Inside that ship, Elian stood alone. He had no armor, no gun, only the scream inside him, the voice of a people erased by silence, now burning like a sun in his chest. He stepped forward. As his ship passed the Galari outer perimeter, targeting systems locked onto him. Hundreds of beams aligned. His ship should have disintegrated before it ever reached the dreadnought, but it didn't, because the scream pushed back. Resonance flared out in all directions, bending the laws of motion and light. The targeting system stuttered. Weapons misfired. One of the gallery escorts lost altitude and spun into a collision path with another ship. Panic bloomed across the Galari fleet. How was he doing this? Admiral Vale demanded. No one answered. Across the galaxy, fracture carriers, the resonance, had gathered. Some waited in silence. Beneath their world's surface. Some stood at the edges of cities, hands raised to the stars. Some held family. Close, ready for the end, ready to burn with truth instead of vanish in silence. But all of them heard Elian's voice. Even before he spoke, even before his words reached them, they felt what was coming. On board the ship, Elian's body trembled. As he stood in front of the ancient amplifier at the heart of the vessel, it wasn't made by humans. It had been hidden in the Valthuran vault, a device made to carry one message. Across every star. Lyra single quotes S voice came over the comes from a safe distance away. Elian, if you do this, the scream will use everything. Your mind, your life, your soul. I know, he said. You don't have to. I do. And then he pressed his hand to the core, across the void. Every fracture burned bright. Elian's body lifted from the floor as the amplifier rose with him. Sound without sound poured from his mouth, not music. Not words. Memory. Pain. Fire. Love. The scream. It moved faster than light, faster than thought, faster than thought. It tore through space like a starquake, not a scream of pain, but of defiance, of remembrance, of truth. Every gallery ship in orbit trembled. Their machines shorted. Their shields buckled. On the flagship, Admiral Veal dropped to his knees as the sound reached him. Not in his ears, but inside his mind. He saw their faces. The Valthuran children he ordered destroyed. The cities burned. The mothers who screamed. In silence. And he felt fear. Not for his fleet, not for his legacy. But for his soul. One by one, Galari ships failed. Not from damage. But from shame. Their neural cores melted. Their power systems rejected commands. As if the universe itself refused to obey them anymore. Elian's body pulsed with blinding light. His skin cracked. Not from pain, from transformation. His voice became many. Not human. Not alien. A bridge between what was lost and what remained. The scream completed itself, not as a cry of sorrow, but as a promise. We remember. The Galari flagship collapsed under its own mass, dragged into the gravity well of a planet it had once intended to destroy. Others followed, powerless to escape the resonance field now wrapping the system like a protective shell. Elian's ship drifted in the center of it all. Silent. Still. But inside, his body was no longer there. Only the symbol. Burned into the metal. Weeks later, survivors rebuilt. Not as soldiers, not as separate colonies, but as a chorus. Resonance became guides, teachers, protectors. The scream lived on inside them, not as pain, but as a song to remind them they were never meant to stay silent. Lyra traveled from system to system, telling Elian's story, and everywhere she went, people whispered the final words he left behind, carved into the amplifier where he vanished. They wanted silence. We gave them memory. They gave us war. We gave them voice. We stayed silent in their war, and they made us regret it. But now, they'll never forget us again.